What's going on, guys? Welcome back. Want to do some MMA news here. Anthony Smith with me again. Some things broke this morning that are really confirmed now. Bellator 149 headliners Ken Shamrock and Kevin Kimbo Ferguson Slice both failed drug tests per the Texas Combative Sports Commission. Today was confirmed to MMA Junkie. The positive tests are believed to have come back in the past week. The substances have not been released, and generally they don't. Obviously, each fighter is yet to release a statement. Likewise, Bellator told MMA Junkie they've yet to officially be informed by the commission that they came back positive. Regardless, for both fighters, it's a 90-day ban. Shamrock's second positive test since 2009, and probably going to end his appeal of the Royce Gracie low blow that no one apparently saw in the ring, aside from everyone that watched it on TV. So what do you think of this? When you first hear of a fighter test positive, what does it say to you, Anthony?
When it comes to Ken Shamrock, I wasn't surprised. Just because, I mean, have you seen his physique in the last few years? You know what I mean? Like, the guy's aging, and he's been in a lot of fights, got a lot of miles on his body. He's been in the sport a long time, and he's got a better stiff sack than I do, and I'm half his age, you know? So immediately when I seen him at the weigh-ins and when he came to the cage, even his last fight before this most recent one, I thought, there's no way that guy's not on something. There's no way that his body makeup and composition look like that on just regular life. You know what I mean? It's just it struck me very odd how he looked. Kimbo, I was a little surprised about, strictly because if he's on performance-enhancing drugs, then he needs to get his money back, because obviously it wasn't working. And who's to say what those substances were? I'm not saying that. And this is strictly speculation, assuming that Ken Shamrock failed for performance-enhancing drugs as far as steroids or testosterone or whatever it may be. But I'm just going to speculate that it may not be an actual performance-enhancing drug that Kimbo fails for. It could be a recreational drug. It could be some type of narcotic, and I'm not going to go into it and say that that's what I think it is, but I find it very hard to believe that he was on a performance-enhancing drug, but he looked so awful. He looked much worse than I've ever seen him look against probably his worst opponent ever. So, and that could be, and who's to say that that's not due to, adrenaline dump or whatever with the hype or whatever, but I was more surprised to see Kimbo fail than Shamrock, that's for sure.
And in fairness to Ken, he's had these problems before. He's came out, he's admitted it before. So it's even, to me, more damaging as a fan to his legacy, where, you got caught in 2009, you came out, you admitted it, and maybe that's your way to make it up with the fans, so to speak. But now to get caught again, it's like, okay, you have to know your time has passed if you're continuing to do this. But take it a step further. Now we're looking at a Bellator card, Bellator 149, that generally, through the fans' eyes, has went down as one of the most lackluster, underperforming, embarrassing stages of all MMA. Now we've somehow taken it to the next level because both of your main card fighters have an issue with performance-enhancing drugs or drug use at all. As a fighter, what does it say to you? I assume there's not much promotional control that Bellator had over these fighters, but don't they have some way of doing due diligence and understanding, these are guys that had fought for Bellator before. Do they not assume that this is maybe a risk that could have happened and monitor these guys more closely or something to prevent this from happening? I can't think of any card where you've had two fighters like this get popped out of the main events.
Well, it's no secret in the MMA world that Bellator is very lax and very, very lenient on their drug testing protocols. I fought for Bellator. I was under contract with them for, 8 months, a year. Fought twice, never drug tested not one time. And you when's the last time you heard previously to this of a couple other Bellator fighters failing drug tests? I can't remember any off the top of my head. I'm sure that it's happened in the past, but I can't think of any off the top of my head. So as a fighter in the MMA world, if anyone that knows what's going on, it's very well known that Bellator doesn't really test their fighters a whole lot. And I think that's where the UFC really sets themselves apart from the other organizations, because you constantly see people failing drug tests in the UFC and stuff like that, and so of course the other organizations are going to say, well, our guys are clean and look at all the UFC fighters. Well, that's not the case. It's just that the UFC's testing more. So from a fighter standpoint, as a fighter that's at a high level, I'm not surprised people are getting caught in Bellator. It just means they're actually getting tested. It doesn't mean that team is using any less anywhere else or any more anywhere else. It just means that Bellator actually, for some weird reason, got tested on this card. But I do think the Bellator needs to follow stride with the UFC and integrate a more strict drug testing policy, because then it makes them even less of a competitor to the UFC as far as globally. You know what I mean?
I guess in a way I agree with you. You know, certainly this could be looked at as a wake-up call for Bellator. I think the thing what I want to close out here with is, if you talk about that wake-up call, you have to consider, you know, when Ken and Kimbo fought, Ken really did look bad. I mean, it really was questionable to see him in the ring perform that way. And then he did look better against Royce, but you have to consider the age there and everything. It was a lot more on par than it was in terms of strength. With all that in mind, now we're coming to the conclusion that he was on something. They both were on something. Is it time for Bellator to just let go of both of these individuals and not put them back in a ring? And likewise, do you think another organization, I guess apart from an independent one, would step up and assume the risk of having either one of these gentlemen back in a cage?
I don't know where Bellator goes from here, but if they want to make a statement and really put their foot down and say that they're against people using drugs or performance-enhancing drugs or whatever they failed for, then I think that they need to make a statement with these two fighters. You know, no matter if you're Kimbo Slice, a big draw, or you're Shamrock, who is a legend in the sport, that, you know, you need to say, we won't tolerate this. But I'm going to tell you right now that it's not going to happen. It's not. That's my guess. They're not going to do anything about it. They're going to let them have their 90-day, couple $1,000 suspension, and they're going to move on with them. If I was Shamrock, it's probably time to hang him up. It's probably time to just quit tarnishing your name. You know, it's just, you know. But I don't know for sure what Bellator would do. But if I had to take a guess, I say that they probably won't do anything. But they absolutely should. They should make an example for the younger fighters that are coming up. Because if you let these guys get away with it, then you're just setting a bad precedent